get the stream up. Get this party started quickly. All right, we're gonna get the word out. Get the word out. Get the word out. Thank y'all for your patience. It has been kind of a rough week health-wise, but I am back and I am better. I just wish I could grab this capture the way I need to. There we go. Running a little bit slower today than normal, but it's gonna be all right. Welcome to the Bonnet Chronicles. I am your host, Kalari GXC, aka 10, and we have a lot to talk about tonight. And I want to get started on PA because, all right, honey, let me get that up. Where's my microphone controls? Seriously? Well, there we go. It says this all the way up. Can you just not hear me at all? That makes sense. All right. How's that? Is it better? I'm just gonna keep talking. Lost my train of thought here. We're gonna talk about PA because honestly, it is the elephant in the room. We really need Senate seats, and I see a lot of people who are rightfully upset, rightfully disappointed. You have a candidate who ran, who did not take care of himself. So right there, you have the talking point. If he doesn't care about keeping himself here, how is he going to care about the people of Pennsylvania? But the point is, he is the Democratic nominee. It's bad enough that the primary, which he won, turnout was abysmal yet again. This is on us. This is on our side. We need a Senate seat. My problem with Fetterman was great. I feel like most people who run under the DSA label, most people who align themselves with people like Bernie Sanders, tend to be a waste of a seat. So even if he had gotten the nomination, which he ended up doing because, once again, voter turnout was fucking abysmal, I felt like he wasn't the kind of person that should be leading our party in any Senate capacity. The man literally chased an unarmed black person who was just jogging in his neighborhood down. So many of us spoke out against Fetterman, but the pushback was, hey, we want him anyway. He's for the people, whatever other bullshit. So now you've got to decide whether or not it's worth risking us not having a Senate majority and vote accordingly. And it shouldn't have got to this point. We shouldn't have to be worrying about people who obviously don't care enough about themselves to take care of their basic needs. But toxic patriarchy is going to come up so much tonight in tonight's topic. Trust and believe on this. And it has just been a really tough week for us Dems. Despite everything the Conservative Party has put forward, being pro-guns, Bleach Barbie giving a literal speech about white Christian nationalism, we can't seem to organize and get out of this selfish self-entitlement, and it has to stop. Welcome to the chat, G Feltman, and thanks, honey, for telling me about the sound thing. I'm a bit aggravated though because I got thing from my Buena Vista Township Charter. I'm not going to show too much. But I was thinking, oh, is it a reminder that we have midterm stuff coming up? Because our first election thing is in August. And I signed up last year even for the permanent absentee ballot measures, which I thought, especially being a disabled woman, great. I only have to worry about getting my ballots in the mail. No, apparently you are going to have to refill out every election, and they don't give you a paid envelope. You literally have to make sure you properly address this, and I am going to make sure that this gets to the clerk. I don't know who they thought they were sending this to, and I guarantee you that there are going to be people that are not only A, confused on how to send this thing back, B, might not even know that they are not on a permanent absentee ballot measure, so they might not get their ballots because of this. Michigan, I don't know what's going on with our state, but this whole measure was to help people, especially people who do not have easy access to their polls, and it's a shit show. And the fact that we have to have stamps, the fact that this envelope is not an official envelope that you can just send it automatically back to your clerk, is garbage. I don't understand what's going on, but we have to be mindful of this. And if you do not have your absentee ballot application filled out soon, you might find out too late that you can't vote. So if you are disabled, if you're elderly, or if you're somebody who knows that you're not going to be able to stand in line in both August and November's elections, please do what you can to get your application filled out. Fortunately, you do not have to physically mail it if you have a scanner, which a lot of poor people don't. We don't have access to these things. So being able to scan and email it to the clerk is an option if you have those kind of tech. But for most people, like I said, our side is full of lazy, selfish people. I'm going to do my part to make sure that I get my ballots mailed to me. But I can see the issue with how they, literally, let me cover up my part of this. This is the envelope they sent me. I had to put on my own stamp. There's no opening to it. I had to address it to the clerk. Hopefully it'll get to her. I don't know what's going on with the elections offices in Michigan, but this is so unacceptable. And welcome to the chat, Zai. But these are the tricks and the shenanigans that we are literally up against, and we cannot let it deter us because we need these Senate seats. Lives are on the line. So while, yes, this Fetterman thing pisses me off for so many reasons, because women aren't afforded that. We look sick, we're told we're too frail. This man literally ignored very vital health issues. And now he's had a stroke. He has been diagnosed with cardiac arrhythmia, which, dealing with a mom who had cardiac problems, it could lead to anything from loss of mobility. Politics is a stressful job. So I don't understand his devotion to continuing the run. I don't support it, but I do support us getting behind a Democrat over Dr. Oz. So it is a fuck show, and you all need to decide whether or not you're going to support a fuck show on our side, or let a very obviously paid and pandered asshole for the Republicans take that seat. It is not a place that I would want to be. And considering I have enough going on here in Michigan, I'm not going to worry about PA. If you live in PA, you need to worry about your state, because it is not in a good way. And then we have this story, which pisses me off, and let me get to it because I just could not believe this morning. I started off just pissed off with this. Let me scroll down because it just troubles me. Deathsantis' bullshit. I lived in Florida from 1995 to 2005. 10 years of my life. Florida taught me so much about letting go of my New York mentality, learning to be a little bit more chill. I learned not to let people's outside appearance have me judge them. But I also learned that there is just a subset of people. People that think they're a bit too fancy for everybody. People who literally moved from up north and came down south and brought all their bigotry and prejudice and money with them. And they are destroying that state from the inside out. And you elected this fucking human troll doll. And he does things like attacking the LGBTQ. He does things like attacking the fucking Special Olympics. I don't understand where people's mindsets are, but COVID is a real and viable issue still. Even boosted, even 3 times vaxxed, I am doing my part to keep me and my family safe. Because I know that being vulnerable, even though my health is mostly mental and anemia, I still have autoimmune issues that could put me in danger. So I do my part to stay away from this. Knowing that there is a literal state putting people who have physical disabilities especially in jeopardy, threatening them with $1 million lawsuits. And the Special Olympics caved because all they want to do is compete. This fucking troll muppet pisses me off. The fact that Florida is under this man's mystique. For what? He is not a smart man. He is literally going to cost you billions in tax revenue because of his feud with Disney. All because the conservative agenda against the LGBT is all they have left. The cruelty has always been a feature. It's not a bug. It is a whole heart of their organization. And I am watching this man ruin a place that, as many bad memories as I have from my ex, I have so many more good memories of Florida. And I hate what he's doing to this state. I hate that he's being allowed to legally do this crap to this state. But to go after the Special Olympics of all things? Come on, Florida. You can do better. There are much better people who actually give a fuck about your state, who give a fuck about everybody in your state. Not just the white Christian nationalists of your state. Not just the wannabe white adjacent of your state. We have to stop the nightmare of Deathsantis. And it's on us Democrats. The other side don't care. They will literally inject calendar wormer. They literally will support this man who yelled at kids for wearing masks at pressers and stuff. He is a fucking menace of their making. So we cannot call on the other side to open up their eyes. They don't care. They are a literal death cult. This has to be on us who see this for what it is. We have to organize around this shenanigans, because if you're a black Dem in Florida, your right to vote is probably in more jeopardy than you know. If you're a Dem of any ilk that isn't white, you are in jeopardy. So I understand that and the gerrymandering that they're trying to do to keep our votes out of the tally. This is why, if you are a white Floridian and you don't have an R by your name, you have to step up to the plate at this point. Because Deathsantis isn't going to stop. He doesn't care if it costs Florida billions of dollars. He doesn't care if it costs Florida billions of lives. And it doesn't seem to matter to him if a person has special needs or not. So it's on us to do the right things. And like I said, I'm in Michigan now. I am doing my part. I just filled out the application. I am going to make sure this gets on the clerk's desk directly, because it's not that far from my house. I make sure to keep informed and know what I've got to do, because I am going to make sure to protect my voice in the Senate with Senator Stabenow, whoever is running for my district's rep, because apparently Representative Guerrero no longer represents me. So now I need to make sure that whoever's filling her seat does listen. There is so much on the line, and you need to know who your voice is. You can't complain about what happened in Uvalde. You can't complain about what happened in Buffalo if you don't have a legislator that's willing to do their job. That is on us. We are the front line in this. So do your part. If you are in a place where you can be on the registered for absentee ballots, do it. Get your early ballot registration stuff filled out. Do your part, because the only way we are going to get better in this country is if we do our bare minimum political investment. I'm tired of seeing this bullshit. People wearing orange, and I get it. You want to feel like you're doing something in response to these senseless acts. But if you're just going to put on an orange shirt and not cast a ballot, you're wasting my time. I'm tired of seeing stunts. We have to take action. It is on us to do the right thing. And for so many of us, 18 and up, all that right thing is filling out a literal ballot, turning it in, and electing somebody who wants to do the fucking job. And it kills me that people act like it's too much for them. And like I said, I literally have health problems. COVID has kept me from interacting with people the way, and honestly speaking, I don't really like interacting with people, but this pandemic definitely made it even better for me to stay the fuck away from people. And even then, I still did everything I could to make sure I could vote. You just don't have excuses. Assholes like this are going to continue to attack people like the Special Olympics, the Special fucking Olympics. Their side is all about cruelty, and we have to stop acting like there is nothing we can do about it. But I'm tired of Deathsantis. I don't want to think about him right now. I want to talk about tonight's main topic. It's going to be 50 years, y'all, since the first Pride Parade. 50 years since the first time people gathered in my home city of New York to celebrate something that, honestly speaking, too many of us take for granted. So tonight we are going to talk about Pride, why it is, why it was needed, and what we can do to protect people. Because, like I said, Deathsantis has his Don't Say Gay bill. We have several states trying to float their own versions. We have Ohio literally targeting trans children, talking about we need to inspect genitals. They are literally trying to pass legalized pedophilia, and we have to shine a spotlight on this because so many people take for granted. It wasn't that long ago. So I'm going to talk tonight on why the history of Pride is so important and what we can do to not only stop legalized dehumanization, but to start understanding humanity better so that we can get to a better place, because that's what it's all about. 50 years ago, there was an incident in Stonewall. It was in a little section in New York City, Manhattan. There's a little bar there called the Stonewall Inn. It was I don't want to say speakeasy because that's more of a 1920s vibe, but it pretty much had that same lean, a place where you can go drink and congregate that really technically wasn't legal. Owned by the mafia. One of those places that if you knew, you knew. And it was a place where drag queens went to perform, gay and lesbian people could go and drink without being harassed. One of the few places that you knew you could go and hopefully not be harassed. Because in 1969, a bunch of undercover, plainclothes police people with nothing else better to do. It wasn't like New York didn't have a whole bunch of crime and literal violence between the gangs and shit. Oh no. They had to send plainclothes officers to raid the Stonewall Inn. And they abused the people there. It didn't matter if it was man, it didn't matter if it was woman, it didn't matter if they were trans or drag queens. They were subjected to humiliation, abuse, and horror because in heavily morality New York, it didn't matter if people were dying in the streets of gun and drug violence. A bridge too far was a man that decided to present himself more feminine, or a woman too butch, or whatever stupid misconceptions about gender identity, and sexuality that floated around the 60s and the 70s. As much as people want to tout the summer of love and hippieism, there was an undercurrent of bigotry that too many people allowed to be acceptable. And in my hometown, it came to the head in Stonewall. And it was drag queens. It was people who did not conform to gender norms that sounded the alarm and sounded the trumpets. And what culminated was one of the first of many pride parades. And yes, it was met with a lot of support, but a lot of backlash. A lot of bigots from the church, especially Catholics, wanted to protest this. A lot of police mocked and arrested people. People couldn't understand why men walking around in leather and women walking around with weird haircuts, and drag queens were marching down the streets. And Christopher Street was one of the first major pride parades. And now people take it for granted. We have pride parades in places where it's still technically illegal to be openly LGBTQ. Japan even started having pride parades. That is the influence that this has rude over the world. But it's still not enough, because like I just said, there are literal countries where being openly gay is illegal, to the point where death is handed down as a sentence. And that doesn't make sense to me in this day and age. And I know that I openly identify as a straight, cisgendered woman. My history with the LGBT is strong. People that I love had to deal with growing up transgender in a world that abused and harmed them because of daring to be who they wanted to be. Friends who literally had to hide who they were. When I decided that I wanted to do criminal justice, which sometimes I do regret not pursuing that path, I was going to take up gay and lesbian rights advocacy because of what happened to Matthew Shepard and Glenna Royal and so many other transgender and gay people who were murdered for who they were. I remember giving the oral report and breaking down because just the brutality of how they beat him and left him to die hanged on a fence. The fact of the matter is, dehumanization shouldn't be the norm, but it is. And welcome to the chat, Respect. And what bothers me about how states right now are rampantly trying to retarget the LGBTQ in the face of 50 years of us celebrating Pride is that this is the only thing they have left. Targeting a vulnerable community that people have allowed acceptable forms of hate towards, whether it's misgendering people, whether it's mocking so-called femininity or infemininity or whatever. It's all about control. And we have to stop it, because we have far too many people who take for granted gender norms. One of the reasons why I finally figured out that I love being female. It wasn't an easy road. There were times where I literally considered going non-binary because of how society treats women. I was sick and tired of hearing the bullshit that women have to deal with to be considered a woman. And I realized that it is not a me problem. It is a society problem. And I'm not going to fix that by denying who I am. I'm a woman. I have no problem with being a woman. But I understand both the psychological differences between me and somebody who really truly identifies as non-binary. And that's another reason why I never took that label, because I feel like a lot of people think it's just a label. It's not. It is how you truly feel. There are some people that literally feel sexless. I didn't. I literally was worried about how I didn't act like normal females and bullshit. And I realized there is no such thing. You are who you are, and being able to feel comfortable as who I am is the best way to be. But there's so many people who can't. And that is why pride is so important. There are still people who can't even celebrate who they love, who they truly are, and it's tiring. And I found footage of the very first Pride Parade. It just, when you see how far back this goes, it is amazing seeing this history. I'm going to play a little bit of it here. It's important. And gender norms are stupid, G. Feldman. I agree. Welcome to the chat, Terry Antico, and respect if I missed you again. Look at, this is old New York, y'all. Let me see if I can make this a little bigger. There we go. At first, I was very guilty. And then I realized that New York, man. Old school New York. Society, but by psychiatrists, just to fit you in a mold. And I just rejected the mold, and when I rejected the mold, I was happier. The thing about Pride, it wasn't just to show off. And I think a lot of people probably still to this day feel like, oh, that's what they're doing. They're just trying to flaunt their lifestyle in our face. And no, it was about human beings. It was about putting a human face on a very human existence that has been around since humanity started. But sadly, we have a very loud, supposed moral majority, ritual Catholics who were protesting this while ignoring the fact that priests were abusing children. It's the hypocrisy for me. It's the hypocrisy that people literally had to organize to march for their right to exist. Yet again, because I say this as a Black American, it's not our first rodeo in this country. We're having to march against dehumanization. But if you look, even back then, even in the 70s, you see the joy that they're trying to bring. There's no anger here. They're gay, they're proud, they're happy, they just want to be. And that's the point of Pride, y'all. It's not just to talk about the sorrows, because there was a lot there. And I need people to understand this, that despite being able to do this for 50 plus years, there is still so much of the history of the LGBT that is both good and severely bad. Everything from being labeled mental illness, being disowned by your family, being cast out in the street. So many people that were probably there at this parade had to form their own families because their families just tossed them out. It is troubling to me that we are 50 years in and we are still seeing states try to pass laws saying don't say gay and banning people from being able to transition properly. The mental scars that this is going to cause people is so unnecessarily cruel. We still have far to go. We still have people who want to target people's identity, make people conform to societal norms when there's nothing normal about it. The reason why so many people still are conflicted with who they are is because of arbitrary, stupid-ass patriarchal rules that we could abolish ourselves. There is absolutely nothing wrong with being gay, lesbian, or trans. But there's absolutely something wrong with people thinking it's their moral authority to say that there's something wrong with it. Because some magical sky deity tells them that that's the only way to get into some heaven. And like I said, if your heaven is full of bigots like you can keep it. I don't want it. I am not okay with that being your reasoning for your bigotry in this day and age. And like as you see, Sodom plus Gomorrah. This was some of the bullshit that these religious assholes tried to push. It's not okay. And like I said, the reason for pride is to remind people of the human faces, to remind people of the dehumanization, to remind people that Stonewall literally was legal for a bunch of plainclothes officers to go in, beat, and harass people and make fun of non-gender conforming people, especially trans women. And trans women are still one of the most disrespected, marginalized groups. And this isn't to leave trans men out of the picture, because Brandon Tina was a victim of violence, beaten, raped, and murdered. It has to stop. Then you have the media complicit in misgendering. It is just constant disrespect and dehumanization. And this is why pride is so important, y'all. And I know that people think, oh, well, what's it matter to you? You're in a so-called normal relationship. It matters because any ignoring of dehumanization, any ignoring of bigotry, it ends up coming back at you, whether you want to admit it or not. Every bit of homophobia is rooted in misogyny, whether you want to understand it or not. Misogyny was one of the first acceptable forms of bigotry. Treating anybody that's too feminine or woman-like as if they're less than. And they translated that into sexuality, because apparently our only biological function was our appeal and whatnot. It's dumb. And when you break down the archaic bullshit of misogyny and then you link it to the other forms of bigotry, it's sickening. But the slant against any form of homosexuality was rooted in, well, two men should want to, men's whole point on earth is to make more babies with women. And women's whole point is to make babies. So if they're not doing that, then what's the point? And it's like, that's not why we were put on this earth. I refuse. And there is enough of us on this fucking earth now. So there is literally no excuse. It's just about control. And when you see the amount of vitriol and hatred that people put in the name of morality, this is why pride is so important, because it is a way of showing that humanity does not have to conform to the morality bullshit that some people try to push. There's absolutely nothing wrong with you if you are LGBTQ+. There's absolutely something wrong with society that continues to make you question, doubt your own humanity for who you are. And we need to get away from the bigotry that is legally sanctioned here, there, and everywhere. I wish I could take on other countries, but we have enough going on here in the United States. And we try to act like we're just this bastion of liberal and ideological freedoms, but we're not. Honestly speaking, y'all, the fact of the matter is, we still have an unacceptable level of bigotry. And while I am proud of so many people who continue to organize and rally and do these marches, June 28th will literally make 50 years since the first Christopher Street March. We literally have states like Florida and Alabama, Ohio, which is right next door to Michigan here, targeting the LGBTQ+. Here in Michigan, we still have people trying to prevent adoption, trying to make life harder for people just for openly being who they are, and it's got to stop. We have watched way too many people have this acceptable form of bigotry because for some reason we humans seem to think dehumanizing others give us power. And we have to get away from that mindset. It is dangerous, it is destructive, and it serves no purpose. I'm tired of seeing people ended up with social and mental anxiety just for trying to openly be who they are. It has to stop, and we can be the ones to stop it. Learning and unlearning bigotry is a part of life. I say this as somebody who, even though I grew up around very openly LGBT people, one of my closest, dearest friends who did my hair from the moment I went to school to my last graduation picture in '95, openly trans woman. And I call her a trans woman because that's what she is. And the amount of danger that she had to deal with, just openly being who she was. Even though she made her purpose to make other people feel beautiful, doing our hair, being there as an ear for you. It's sickening that growing up, I couldn't do more to protect her from hated comments, from being beaten up, from all the indignities. And yet she still holds her head high. Still has her beauty salon up there. And that's why I say we have to do our part to do better. Because while I patronize her business, while I, for no intense purpose, always gendered her the way she wanted to be, there were times where when comedians made fun of trans people, I laughed. I didn't take seriously how many people in her house were probably there because they had to be, because their own families kicked them out for moral reasons. It wasn't until I watched the show Pose that I was able to put two and two together, because her business, like a lot of our businesses in New York, would run out of house. And I always wondered, it was a big house. Most of our houses were two-family houses, and there were people that were constantly in and out of there. It never dawned on me that she was probably like a den mother for other gay and transgender kids who had no other place to go. So many people take for granted having a roof over their head, having family that would not turn their backs on you. But a lot of Americans have stories of literally having nobody else but a friend who took them in when they had nowhere else to go because of how they identified. It's sickening. And we still applaud people like Deathsantis who passed these bogus bias laws. We literally have the Ohio Dems to thank for that asinine bill in Ohio not being passed, but they still need more help. Representative Chantel Brown and others, we need more people like that so that they do not get to legally pass legislation that will allow them to inspect the genitals of transgender kids. I don't even understand how anybody could want legislation like that. But it is a sick and twisted conservative mind that seems hyper fixated on the genitalia and bodily functions and sexual activities. And for moral people, they always seem to have sex on their fucking mind and on their brain and what other people are doing. Pose was one of my favorite shows, for real, because it really opened up the dialogue of how it was for the LGBTQ, but especially for transgender women, and especially Black transgender women. And I really want people to understand that there was a difference. Black trans women are still one of the highest groups of murdered victims, because in our community, being a Black gay or transgender open person marks you for violence. because we still have this toxic patriarchal obsession with what is feminine and what is masculine that we need to get away from. And trust me, it's not just American. In the continent of Africa, the laws against homosexuality are fucking barbaric. So I can't even just blame it on being American. It is a fucking issue global. But here in the States, it has been awful. And our community is shameful. We know dehumanization. We know what it feels like to literally have to fight for our humanity. Yet for our LGBTQ family, we turn a blind eye to their dehumanization. It has to stop. That is why pride is important. That is why we have to stand up for this. And while, because of COVID, because like I said, being autoimmune compromised and having paranoia about everything as it is, there's absolutely no way I can physically partake, but I can support both financially groups that organize these marches. I want Pride to be safe this year, but I'm fearful because there's been a rise in conservative backlash against anything progressive, anything that allows people to just be. It feels like the other side wants us constantly scared, wants us to constantly be in fear of their moral rule. And it doesn't have to be, because they're not smart people. They literally inject themselves with cowbell warner. They ignore science. These are not the brightest bunch, so why are we letting them run shit into the ground? If you care anything about pride, if you care anything about people being able to just live, you will do your part to be more informed. You will do your part to shed the bigotry, because we all have learned bigotry, whether we want to admit it or not. But the first step in making sure that it doesn't rule over all of us is to work on you. I tell people all the time, the me that's here today is still a work in progress and would not be recognized from the me 20 years ago. The me that just wanted to be accepted, the me that just wanted to fit in, the me that let things slide that I would never let slide now. But it takes work. And one of the biggest bigots I had to take on was myself. I had to unlearn a lot of things that I used to take for granted because it was socially acceptable. And if you're not willing to take those steps, you're going to be a hindrance to us. I'm saying this tonight because it's so important with the 50th anniversary of Pride coming up for all of us to work on things that we might not have thought was a problem before. But we know it's a problem when we see people being openly bashing to somebody's sexuality, when we see legislators trying to pass bills that attack people's identity. We need to be on the front line of that. But the best way to do that is to confront every bit of negative that we've accepted over the years. It's not easy. It's just like what I said about anti-racism. It is a constant commitment and work. And if you're not willing to fully do it, don't say you are. Because I call those people out all the time too. You put a rainbow emoji in your name on Twitter, you say the most vile, homophobic, bigoted things, and then think, well, no, I put a rainbow emoji. I can't. It's like the people that put BLM in their profile, yet spend all day, every day, not awing at black people. You're not fooling anybody. You can't say you're about something and then your antics and actions show otherwise. The fact that there are still places that make being trans, being homosexual, legally on the books in certain parishes, even here in my state, is a problem. And even though we've had strides like Marriage Equality Act being passed, Don't Ask, Don't Tell being repealed, because yes, we even had it where the military literally could just dishonorably discharge you if you were homosexual. Like I said, I studied medical coding and history. That was the degree that But I, as a straight woman, have the luxury of acting like it's not a big deal. And until we undo the unfairness of that, we need to take this seriously. The LGBTQ are a group of people who are diverse. There's not just one ethnicity to it. There's not just one way to be. But they, like so many of us in America, have struggled just to be able to be open, just to be able to be who they are without the risk of being arrested, without the risk of being lynched. And the fact that violence against them is still either overlooked or in some places condoned due to the moral right, but even worse, ignored by the so-called moral left. How moralistic is it for you to dehumanize and harm people for your so-called faith? It doesn't seem like a faith that I would want any part of. Just anger and violence as the only way. This is why so many of us just have no interest in it. And it's a sad testament to these people who try to say, well, it's their faith-given right. You're not convincing at all. People want that path to faith. People want a reason to believe in something after. But when you use that to discriminate and make other people feel like they don't belong, what's the point? Y'all lost me years ago with that stuff. One of my first really eye-opening things in the church, one of the reasons why, despite me really loving the way my grandfather was, because he was a no-nonsense reverend, he didn't care what you identified as, you were welcome in his church. But it was his parishioners that openly mocked the only gay couple that dared sit in our church every Sunday. And it just, the hypocrisy of it to me, because these people knew bigotry, these people knew prejudice, these people knew because they marched for civil rights, but yet they would openly say the most harmful, hateful things about two men who just wanted to love each other and still believed in God. The same God that they were trying to tell them, oh, well, you're not going to get into this afterlife with us, so I don't know why you're here. And like, this is what you're trying to sign the rest of us up for? This country club mentality? I don't even like sitting in pews with you on Sunday, and you're trying to sign me up for an eternity with y'all? I don't think so. I'm sorry, can you hear me now? Uh-oh. Let me adjust the mic again. Turn this up. I am sorry. I'm just okay. I just wanted to make sure because the mic has been acting a bit weird. But seriously, I'm just saying it was not a way to recruit somebody like me. Somebody that stayed in my head, somebody highly analytical and no, it's okay, Terry. This microphone is about to be replaced for real. My birthday's coming up. I'm going to be doing a lot of equipment upgrading. But what troubled me about the hypocrisy in being in the church was the fact that being in a black church, you would think that we would have been more welcoming. And there were times where you did feel like family. But you had to ignore things like the misogyny that was open. You had to ignore things like the homophobia that was open. And it just got to me at 18 that I didn't want to live that life anymore. I did not feel right in my soul acting like that kind of ideology would serve me any point. And I don't feel like faith understands that if you're going to run yourself like a country club, if you're going to run yourself as if telling people who they are, who they identify in, who they love is a way to bar them from eternal paradise, then I don't want your paradise. You can keep it. I don't think it's a selling point anymore. And I feel like the really angry wannabe Christian soldiers aren't selling it for you either. If you're just so content in your faith, why are you mad? If you're so content in your faith, why do you need violence all the time? You're not selling me on this. And I think you need to understand that. And it's not faith itself. I need people to understand that. The belief in the higher power, the wanting to have a reason for why we're here, the wanting to understand things, both natural and supernatural, that's a human thing. And I don't knock faith. I knock the people who twist it to be bigots. I knock the people who utilize it to cause harm to other people for control. People who manipulate to make sure that their own pockets and coffers are okay while everybody else struggles. The problem isn't faith, it's the humans who abuse it. And we are the ones who can stop it. I want people to understand that I know pride is going to continue. But they are in dangerous times right now. They are in times where we have lax gun laws and people who act like, oh, there's nothing we can do about it. We'll put on an orange shirt to protest, but we won't do our part by filling out a fucking ballot so that we can get people to put actual gun measures on the line. We have Republicans who would rather drop out of races for daring to say we need tougher gun laws instead of running, because the other side, if you don't fall in the line, you might as well fall out. We have Democrats who, while there are so many out there that I know are willing and able to do the running and do the work, aren't flashy enough, aren't saying the right buzzwords for the selfish, entitled people who, oh, I got too much debt. I'm not going to be able to be motivated off my couch, and then wonder why we are in a constant cycle of fuckery. We have to do better, y'all. And we have to do more to be invested so that stuff like what's tried to happen in Ohio, stuff that's literally going on in Florida and Alabama, of all places. Like I said, Alabama, you are literally last rank in everything. Being the biggest bigots is your only first rank. Maybe get rid of dusty old KIs and get yourself a politician that actually cares about your literacy rates and everything else. Because this whole don't say gay bullshit, this whole banning stuff based on bigotry has to stop. That is why the 50th anniversary of Pride is so important. Because we see how the other side is. We see what they want to do. They constantly want to dehumanize people. They constantly want to make us feel like we're othered so that they can feel empowered. And if we keep allowing their terrorism to rule the day, we are going to constantly have these social explosions of violence and anxiety, and it's just not stable. So it's really on those of us who are old enough to vote, old enough to do our civic duty, to either do our bare minimum or run for something. And if you are able, if you are physically and mentally able to run for something, I know it seems like it's hard to do. I'm not saying just be Joe somebody and run for the highest level of office. Start somewhere. There are so many unchallenged offices that conservatives have made a beeline for. School boards, comptrollers, election officials. These are all positions that you can run for to make a change and make things better. So if what's going on upsets you, if what's going on worries you, if you are literally in a state where they could be trying to pass these laws, don't talk about moving, because that was another thing I seen on Twitter today. People talking about, well, we're going to have to move our family up out of this state. They're attacking the LGBT and we don't feel safe. So instead of staying, organizing, and making your state better, you think you're going to move somewhere else because we don't have our own problems? Like, I made that mistake. I jumped from NC, which they're going through it. I wish I had stayed now because I still get reached out by Governor Cooper's office, Josh Stein's office, uh, what's that district senator? I know he runs a 60. I get so much mail still because I was very politically active in NC. I see the NC GOP trying really hard to not only revitalize HB 12, which was their transgender bathroom ban, but trying to draft their own Don't Say Gay bullshit. I moved up north, not only for love, but because I was tired of the bullshit that was going on in North Carolina politics. But I realized by doing that, I did not help the situation. So don't just move. The luxury of moving is something that I'm not going to take for granted here. I didn't just move to Michigan to say fuck you to another state. I moved to Michigan because I know that I am going to be politically active and aware here. But I do have regrets of that I'm just going to take my kid and leave the South mentality. We've got to stop doing that. We've got to stop taking our power away where it's needed. I am hopeful still that North Carolina has enough people there organizing. But it really is a shitty attitude to have to just, oh, I'm just going to leave it behind and go somewhere else. Because honestly, there is nowhere safe in America if you're marginalized. So we all have to just start doing our part. Stop worrying about fleeing, especially if you're not of a demographic whose life is in danger in the first place. And start doing your part to organize and make where you are better. Because if where you are is better for you, it'll be better for people like me. It'll be better for people in the LGBTQ+. Do your part to make your place better and stop talking about fleeing. Honestly speaking, it is exhausting to me that people are still doing that. Taking the social media, talking about how we gotta leave, we gotta get up out of here. And go where? These Christian conservative sects are everywhere. They're plotting to kidnap governors. They're shooting up our schools. They're shooting up our grocery store. They're shooting up fairs and any place we go to congregate. The only way to get safe places is to elect people who will make it harder for these people to own these weapons of destruction. Because that is the way to take them on. It's not just passing bans. It is making it financially harder for them to justify owning it. It is put in measures to making it where if you want to own a weapon like that, you need to be licensed, you need to be tested, you need to pass psychological exams. These things could be put on a serious legislative state measure. But we need to elect people who want to do that. People want to blame things like video games and violent imagery. Japan has had those for years. Some of the craziest manga I've ever read. Disturbing shit. They don't have school shootings because it is legitimately hard to legally own a gun in Japan. If they can do it, we can do it at state levels here. But we need to have legislators that give a fuck. We need to have people who don't need an actual relative to have been buried to gun violence to give a fuck. We need to have people to think beyond themselves. Because it shouldn't take this coming to your doorstep before you give a fuck. And it's going to take more than posing in a shirt. Do your part. Elect officials that will do their part. It's serious. This goes beyond just begging you for help. This goes beyond me being a mother. This is just me as a human being tired of not feeling safe. I've never had the luxury of it. I grew up in a time where violence and just ridiculousness was a norm. So I know I've never felt safe. But I know that we can get to that place. But it takes all of us willing to do our part to make it happen. And like I said, opening up with PA, it It's a shit show. I don't envy the fact that you have to back either Fetterman, who doesn't seem to want to take care of himself, or Dr. I got my money through scams Oz. But we need legislators and we need a Senate majority. So whether you have to hold your nose to cast your ballot in November or not, you need to do your part. Because we cannot afford to lose that majority. The conservatives have shown us what's on their agenda. Attacking CRT, attacking the LGBTQ, attacking women's right to not be child brides in certain states. And don't think it'll stop in Tennessee. Their whole agenda is control. So we have to be a united front against their fuckery. Their foot soldiers are socially conditioned to think that this is their lot in life. And if that is not your mentality, then you need to do your part to be the front against this, because they are going after children. They are going after the most vulnerable. And we are the ones that need to stop it. It is. I am so upset with PA. I honestly thought Conor Lamb had a better chance. I thought more people would understand that. I know that there were people that were divided because of Kenyatta. I still feel Malcolm Kenyatta has a future in politics. I just don't think the Senate race was his best moment into things. What troubles me about Fetterman is that people ignored his problematic history. And now we have to deal with the ramifications of that. I don't want to see Oz win the Senate seat. His win would be a detriment to us right now. We need senators that will take gun reform seriously. We need senators that will not pass these dehumanizing laws. So as much as I do not like John Fetterman, as much as if I lived in that area, I would not have voted, and I would have made sure that my primary vote went to an opponent, he is the Democratic pick. So you just need to turn out. We need that Senate seat. That is the most important thing. Here in Michigan, I need to make sure that my governor continues to have her seat. Because we have gun-toting wackadoos chasing hers. It is a mess, y'all. And we cannot get lax. And like I said, have to deal with shenanigans. I thought my permanent absentee ballot thing was actually permanent. Come to find out, no. They're going to constantly send me a piece of paper to make sure that's what I want. And I'm going to make sure to fill out that piece of paper and get it on her desk. These are the things that you have to do to make sure that your vote counts, that your voice is heard, and that you're properly represented. And I want you to have your 4-year and beyond plan ready. Do your part, because apathy leads to so much misery for all of us. We can do our part to stop this. And I really do. I feel the same way, Beans. Maybe it's the New Yorker in me. It pisses me off that we're so beholden to stuff like this. But we are not the only ones that can do something about things. Pennsylvania, while we need the seat, is far from the only state. Florida really has to get its act together. We need Val Demings. We need to get rid of Deathsantis. There's just so many states on the line, and we cannot afford to sleep on any of them anymore. We can be that front against the conservatives. They really think, because they have the media in their pockets, because they have so many people who loudly talk about, oh, I don't want to do this. I'm not getting my way. I voted once, and, everything that fell magically in line for me, so why should I do it again? We have to get past the entitlement and the selfishness, because if your selfishness and self-interest stymies any progress, what's that going to get you? Oh, you get to complain? Great. We have to really be the force of actual positive progress. So much is on the line, y'all. So please, if you are able to legally vote, do your part. The other side, they don't even need that many. They got enough that turn out no matter what, as long as they got an R by their name. All I'm asking for you to do is to get on your early ballot, absentee ballot if you're in a state that has that, measures, and do your part to get your voice heard. It really isn't that much. Vote, because all of our lives depend on it. But I'm going to get ready to wrap this up. I will be back hopefully on Tuesday. I will be on this weekend with gaming stuff, but like I said, it's a whole different ball game. Thank you all so much for sitting in. I really appreciate and love yous. My birthday is coming up in a few days. I don't think I'm going to stream on the day of my birthday. I think I'm just going to take a day and relax with the family. But the Friday after will be a birthday Bonnet Chronicles. So I want to thank all of you for constantly being here, supporting this show, being in the chat. Beans, Respect, Terry, G. Feldman, thank you so much for your constant love and support. I will definitely be back on Tuesday with more election and hopefully news and just talking about the issues. But I definitely wanted to bring up Pride and the history of it because it's important to me. Too many people I love right now are scared that they're going to be legally targeted for who they are. And I don't want that anymore. And if I can do my part to help protect them, if I can do my part to make things better for all of us, I'm going to do that. And I really hope that I'm not alone in this. But I'm going to get ready to wrap this up, go make some dinner and stuff. Yes, it is your time to shine. He has been waiting to play this for a while, y'all. So I'm going to let me make sure that's able to. I think the sound alerts are transition. I'm gonna get let me know if it doesn't work, honey. Because sound alerts can be a little bit. He's been wanting to